Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I know that this isn't my regular recording, however, one thing that I do want to cover on my YouTube channel is I want to be real with you guys and I want to show you my life and kind of how I am. As you can see, just showered, my hair is still wet, I have a pimple, and my skin tone is uneven. I mean, I'm not going to hide it from anybody, and I don't see why I should. I never have and never will. I do just want to adjust this a little bit higher, though. Okay. Anyways, so today, by the way, my bird is over that way in her cage, so you might hear her, but I will be back to my usual recording soon. But right now, also I have a fan going right here. It's an air purifier. It's for my room so that I can breathe better. Like to keep my air clean because I can't really have plants in my room as much as I would like to. But anyways, so I want to be real with you guys, and I want to let you know that I'm not just trying to prove to be some sort of higher power and that I'm a big influencer and I'm too good for everybody. Like, I don't want that. A lot of the message that I'm trying to actually spread is a lot about self-love, self-forgiveness, trying to recover. There's going to be a lot of shadow working and stuff like that, a lot of magic, talk about elves and nature and about an elven life and an elven spirituality and acceptance and a higher spirituality, just nature, fun, loving, adventure, like everything. That's basically what this channel is going to be about. But today, specifically, what I want to talk to you a little bit about, sorry, I also have my journal over here on the side of the camera so that I can remember. I am not exactly, I believe I have undiagnosed ADHD, and I'm working with my doctor right now to get it diagnosed, as well as some other things that we're working on getting diagnosed as well. So just to kind of like give you a little bit more of a personal feel, I mean, I'm not perfect. I have a neurodivergent brain. I mean, I'll talk a little bit more about fitting in as an elf and having a neurodivergent brain at some point in the future. So, I mean, there's a lot of different stuff I'm going to cover, but that is definitely one that I'm excited about because I've learned a lot about it, and I would love to share that with you guys. But anyways, so today I'm recording this video to talk about my spiritual path. Now, this video isn't going to be as good of quality as the videos that I have coming out in the future because I usually have a better camera. Right now, you guys are just on my phone, on my light, and that's why this background is kind of what's going on. But I was really inspired to do this, and like I said, my face isn't perfect. I got a pimple. I have splotchy skin. I just got out of the shower. But when inspiration hits you, it hits you. And last time I did this on my camera died halfway through before I was even done. So I'm going to attempt to do this again, and we'll see how it goes. But anyways, so onwards. But my spiritual path that I have basically developed throughout my life, I want to talk about it. So basically my elven spiritual path. I was raised Christian for a good majority of my life. My mother, I don't want to say she's atheist. I think she believes in God, but she has a very weird relationship with him. And right now she kind of wants to refuse that he exists because she's really mad because my grandma passed. So she has her own relationship with God. My dad is a Christian, but he doesn't go to church. He's not a church Christian. Not that there's anything wrong with Christians or going to church or anything. I actually went to church a lot in my life for both my dad's side of the family and my mom's side of the family with my grandma, and I don't see anything wrong with it. I think it's a very beautiful religion, so I'm not bashing anybody's religion. I'm just stating what I know, and if what I know is wrong, go ahead, feel free to educate me. I'm all about education. But I grew up Christian for a good chunk of my life until I was about 11 or 12 when I stopped going to Sunday school and vacation Bible camp, and a lot of stuff happened in my life. I didn't have a lot of friends, and I was trying to study religion because I was very interested. At that point, I wouldn't say that I was necessarily Christian, but I was questioning stuff, and so I was kind of like in between, am I religious, am I not religious? So I found out about nature-based religions, and the main one that I found out about was Wicca. Now, I know a lot of people, I mean, there are a lot of Wiccans, but I know that Wiccan and Wicca are a new form. And what I want to disclaim in this video is Wicca does not equal witchcraft, and witchcraft does not equal Wicca. Witch does not equal Wicca, and Wicca does not equal witch. You can be a Wicca, you can praise the god and goddess, you can love nature, don't harm anybody, but you don't ever once have to work with magic or do spells. That being said, about 90% of Wiccans practice witchcraft and use magic and crystals and plants and herbs and stones and tea and stuff. And they practice magic and use witchcraft. There's about 10% of the population who practices Wicca just for the spirituality beliefs. But you know, that's okay. No judgment. So I was one of the ones who did practice magic. So I was one of the 90% who does practice magic. I did a whole entire even school assignment on Wicca and what the religion was and the difference between solitary practitioner and covens. And I dedicated a lot of my life to this between the ages of 13 and 15 or 16. And then I started discovering other paths of religion. But I had dedicated a lot of my life to learning about it and practicing. And at such a young age, I know that 3 years may not seem like a lot to a lot of people, but at such a young age, 3 years was a little under a quarter of my life. So I would still consider, since I am still pretty young, I dedicated 3 years as a 13-year-old until I was 16 just to Wicca, and that's a long time. And even now, at my age, I'm 23, I still believe in a lot of the principles of Wicca. I wouldn't exactly call myself a complete Wiccan, but I'll get on to that later on in this video. So I found Wicca, I practiced it for many years, and I connected to the god and the goddess, and I kind of pictured them as a mother and father figure. My family was kind of a broken family. Not to say that I don't love my mom and dad very much, but I had a very rough childhood. My father was a drunk, my mom was emotionally distant, she was on suicide watch. My sister basically raised me, but at some point my sister left because she had to pursue bigger and better things, and my oldest brother actually ran away. That's a story for a different time, but he ran away and he was homeless. He chose to be that way, but he was my oldest brother. And then my other older brother, who is my youngest older brother, he's autistic. He doesn't need a lot of care needs, but he is autistic enough that he is considered disabled, even though I don't think he should be considered disabled. He's a very smart person who can live independently, but had that bashed into his head his whole life for being neurodivergent, because at the time that he was diagnosed, they didn't know a lot about it. So I had a really weird family, and when I found the god and goddess, I kind of latched onto them a little bit as if they were a mother and father figure to me, and I considered them my true parents. And for my whole entire time working Wicca, and even until now, I do consider them my mother and father, like as if I was born from them. However, I still do love my mom and my dad, and things are better now in my family. We're all independent. I'm the baby. I'm grown up. But, and I still do have the connection with my mom and my dad, as I know that I was born from them. But spiritually, the god and the goddess are my mother and father, and that is the way that it will probably stay for the rest of my life, because they saved me when I was in a really dark place and showed me some very beautiful things. That being said, when I was about 15, 16, maybe 17, it might have been a little bit later, I found Druidry. And Druidry itself is actually, it's a very complex religion, but I studied it, and I even found a book. I found several books on Druidry. I even found the Order of the Ovates, Druids and Bards, or the Druids, Ovates, and Bards. Yeah, I think it's the no, the Ovates, Bards, Ovates, and Druids, because it's BOV. So the order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids. So Bards are basically the musicians, the people who write stories, poems, they rehearse stories and whatnot. Ovates are basically like the witches, the shamans, the healers, and then the Druids are like the teachers. They remember everything and they teach, and you have to go up through the ranks in order to become a Druid. It's a whole big long thing. But I studied it, and I even studied the rise and fall, and actually, since I'm sitting here, I don't know if I have the book on hand, but I have this beautiful book. I'm pretty sure it's called The Secret Cauldron, and it is actually about the history. But another book that I have is The Druid's Herbal, which is a fun one, gives you a lot of information. And oops, this one right here. So it's The Sacred Cauldron, The Secret of the Druids. And it was somebody who did a lot of research about the Druids and where they originated from, because a lot of people try to say that Druids originated from Christianity. The Druids did not originate from Christianity. Christianity actually kind of, I don't want to say took over, but they took Druidism and they tried to form it into a form of Christianity, and they tried to make it a men-only thing, to where men were the one who could only be in it, sort of thing. I don't know. It's a long story. But there's a lot of history where it dates back to the Celts, and the Vikings and the Anglo-Saxons, and how the Celts were of several tribes, and the Druids formed from the Celts of the several tribes. And there's several different types of Druids. There's like British Druids or British Celts, and then there's like German Celts, and then Anglo-Saxon Celts. Like, I mean, Anglo-Saxon I think is German, but Scottish Celts, Finnish Celts, Norwegian Celts. Like, I mean, lots of stuff. And from all of those, there was different types of Druids, and it explains it in that book. And then there's a lot of other stuff too. But and then this Druid's Herbal is kind of like, it gives you the information. Like, for instance, you have chicory, you have the parts of the plant that are used, what the herbal uses are, what the magical uses are, and even what like the homeopathic uses can be and whatnot, and how to use them, and just all that sort of fun stuff. But yeah, I have lots of books on that. I'll do a book recommendation later. But so I studied that, and then I came across a book called Druidcraft, which was basically talking about a awesome author named Philip Cargon, or Cargom. I don't remember how to pronounce his last name. But Philip Cargon, I listened to the Audible version, and listening to the Audible version was probably the best thing ever, because him and I think one of his family members, it might be his daughter, reads it, and it transports you to this school. It's called Avernell, and your teacher, who is, I think her name is Elidir, is what her name is in the book, and she is the one who teaches you through this, and her voice in the book is just perfect. You get transported there. I used to listen to it back and forth from work. I mean, it's great. I've listened to the book 3 times fully through, and I'm going on my 4th time listening it, because every time I listen to it, I take away something different, plus also store away the previous knowledge that I have, but I always learn something new every time I listen to the book. But it basically talks about a lot how there was Druid, and then there was Wicca, and the witchcraft side of Wicca, how they were both separate sides of the spectrum at one point, when they brought Druidry back from the ancient knowledges, kind of around the time that the Christianity era kind of tried to take over. And then they realized that Christianity wasn't exactly Druidism, and they were trying to bring back the original Druidic sort of history, I guess. I mean, Druids have been around for forever. They never completely disappeared, but once it started blowing up again, it was all about the preservation and the history and the knowledge, whereas Wicca was all about the magic and the spirituality. Well, Druidcraft is kind of trying to merge the two sides. Not saying that there's not some in each of them, but it's trying to fully merge it together. Apparently, the person who had brought back Druidry to its full extent that it is today, and all the information that you can find, the original person was good friends with the original person who kind of brought Wicca into it. I think it was either Alexander Gardner or the other one, because there's Alexandrian Wicca and then there's Gardnerian Wicca. There's a whole bunch of different types of Wicca, but Alexandrian Wicca and Gardnerian Wicca are two of the most famous ones. But they were originally friends, and when they had their spiritual past, they kind of went separate ways because they didn't agree. But this book kind of covers it, and I think it is a beautiful meshing of the two, and it's kind of a lot of what my path is, especially even as an elf. I follow kind of the druid craft, spirituality, and path, even though it's a newer term, but it's what I've always believed in. It's just a good way to describe it, as well as I also practice some shaman type healing and stuff, and I want to become a holistic healer. So I'm a little bit of a complex person, but it kind of all mixes together. And then around the age of 17 or 18, I think it was around when I was like 18, I found therianthropy, which is actually what led me to learn about the Otherkin Society. I will go on about therianthropy in a later video because it's a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. It'll help me find a lot about who I am and even who I am to this day, and a lot about what my future is going to be. And I'll just explain it later on a later date. I know that I mentioned it in some of the Facebook groups for the elven stuff, but I want to do a full video about it because I think that chapter of my life, I learned so much from the therianthropy community that has helped me and will continue to forever help me through the rest of my life. But it is what led me to realize that I was otherkin, or that I am an elf. And actually, I believe that I am an elf born, which is when you have Fae blood within your ancestry, because my grandpa on my mom's side was actually I found out, a sailor, tall, dark, handsome, who met my grandma, and they had a one-night stand, and he got sent away on a ship. So my mom's dad, who we don't actually know who he is, you hear stories all the time of sailors or tall, dark, and handsome people who just come into your life for one night, and all of the stories kind of match up to how this happened. And it kind of makes sense because my family has a knack for spiritual and magical abilities, and my mom denies hers. My grandma denied hers for a long time. So I believe that we do have some sort of magical lineage even further back than that, but more recently. So, but me and my sister mostly contain these attributes, but I do believe that that would explain a lot of why I can hear plants talk to me, like not talk like words, but I know what plants want and I know what plants need. I just have to pay attention, and I know what I can feel and hear and listen to crystals. I can hear and listen and feel nature, which has a lot to do with what my spiritual path is. Like, if nature was a person, I could talk to them, and I do. I just do it in my own way. I don't even have to use words. It is just like my soul can reach out and I can talk to them. But anyways, so I learned all of that, and I learned that I was elven souled. I also have a wolf spirit and a wolf soul, but that kind of goes back into therianthropy, which will be its own video. But I found out that I am an elven soul and that I am of Fae, which kind of led me into my journey along shamanism and healing, because I realized there was a lot I could do with healing and shaman work. And I tried to learn for the longest time, how am I going to have a wolf soul? How am I going to be elven? How am I going to be a witch? How am I going to be a healer and do all of these things? How am I going to have all of these titles and make it work somehow. I don't know how I did it, but I did. And what I did is I basically decided to drop the title of a witch, because even though it works for some people, a witch does not work for who I am and what I am. I don't actually think there's a definition for what I am. I wouldn't even call myself a shaman, but that's kind of the path that I'm kind of following. I wouldn't call myself druid. I wouldn't call myself Wiccan, even though I follow those paths and those spiritualities. The druid craft, I follow it almost to a T, with a little bit of some eclectic stuff thrown in there, but I still wouldn't call it that. I follow my own path, and I'm still trying to find out what that is. But it kind of happened when I really embraced being elven, and I learned a lot about what that was in the group. And so I use my elven power and my elven magic to help me connect deeper to the plants and the trees. I have my own garden inside my house. I even have some outdoor plants that once I finally embraced it, I was never good at growing outdoor plants, but once I finally embraced who I was and actually took the time to hone and concentrate my power into doing these things and having these plants, I have a sage bush outside my house, and a lavender bush, and a rosemary bush, and an ivy plant growing, and I was never able to do that before, like ever. I even have some moss growing outside just because I love moss. I love all types of moss, and I wish that I could just have moss growing inside my house, but I live in an apartment, sadly, and so I can't. But I also have an indoor garden, which I was only able to keep a few plants before, even though I love plants, until I honed into my magic, and I actually took the time to try and work with my magic. I wasn't able to have all of the plants that I wanted, and now that I am able to work with my magic, my plants flourish, and I don't even have to do anything. I just water them, I commune with them, I make sure that I do what they need, and they grow, and they love me, and I love them. I connect with my crystals, I connect in different ways. I use some forms of divination, so I still practice witchcraft, but it's not witchcraft, it's an elven craft, it's elven magic, it's just being an elf, it's tapping into your untapped potential, all of the magic that's inside the fae that we hold, whether it be fae blood, like I believe that I have the natural ability, or if you embrace an elven soul or a fairy soul or even a mermaid or siren soul, because I know that those are part of the elves too. And I know that if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, hobbits, if you consider yourself a hobbit, it can still be technically fae. If you consider yourself a dwarf, it can still technically be considered fae. I mean, it's an umbrella term. There's a lot going on there. But the ones mostly talked about are mermaids, fairies, and elves. But however you embrace it, however you have your magic, you have to work with it. It's not something that's just going to come to you naturally. I've naturally had these abilities since I was younger. I always knew I was different. I've always had an intense ability for manifestation. And just recently I found out that I work with something called chaos magic. And it's not bad like it sounds. I use it to heal, to create, to bring in new, but you have to think. When the world was created, it was a beautiful, wonderful thing. But there was chaos in the beginning. There was chaos that was needed to create. Chaos can also destroy if you're not careful. My energies throughout my life, my manifestation, I have to be careful what I wish for, because what I wish for will come true. If I think the wrong thing, it will come true, and it could be worse for me or worse for somebody else. As a Wiccan, I don't want to be responsible for somebody else getting hurt, because literally, as the Wiccan Read states, and ye harm none, do what ye will. And I don't want to be responsible for that. So I do my best with the powers that I have, the magic I have. I hone it into growing my plants and to communing with my crystals, to healing myself, and to one day becoming the doctor and the healer that I want to be. I want to be an energy healer. I want to be an herbal healer. I want to be a doctor. I want to be able to heal people not only of their mental and spiritual ailments, but as well as their physical ailments. But I mean, this is just where my spiritual path has brought me. It has brought me to a place of enlightenment. I've done a lot of shadow work recently, which is another thing that my chaos magic has been helping me with, is to learn to embrace the shadow side and to work with it and not push it away, because when I was younger, I pushed my shadow self away and I locked it in a box, because I have a natural ability to just control that. Like, not everybody can just lock away their shadow self, but I did. And I paid the price for that when I let it out. And honestly, it's been hell. But I let her out. I let her do what needed to be done. And I'm still doing what needs to be done. And I'm still healing. But I work with it every day. And that's kind of where my spiritual path has taken me. I'm not perfect. I'm not the perfect individual. I don't think I ever will be. I do aspire to be somebody who can help in the future. Hold on. I do aspire to be somebody who can help people in the future, and to be able to be somebody who can teach others and have them follow, and not do as I did, but kind of follow my example and use that to hone their own craft, discover their own elven abilities, and to be able to find out who they truly are on the inside. My spiritual path is still going and continuing and growing every day, and I don't claim to know everything, because I'm still very young and have a lot to learn. This is just where I'm at right now. I have a very old soul, an extremely old soul, because I do a lot of reincarnation past life work.